The lecture hall of the Galactic Integration Academy smelled of recycled air and alien anxiety. Professor Kale Veyron stood at the front of the amphitheater, his iridescent scales catching the artificial light as he adjusted his data slate with 3 careful fingers. He was a Velhari, long-limbed, silver-eyed, possessed of a calm that generations of prey-species evolution had polished into something almost meditative. His people had survived by being invisible. By reading threat. By leaving before danger arrived. 23 students occupied the curved rows of seats. 19 species. Assorted biology. 1 human. That last detail was, Professor Veyron had learned in 6 semesters of teaching, always the variable that made lesson plans fall apart. He tapped the slate and brought up the first holographic slide, a swirling diagram of predator-prey ecosystems across 14 documented death worlds. Today, he began, we cover Unit 7, Survival Mechanics and Predator Evasion across Class 4 and Class 5 hostile biospheres. He let his silver eyes sweep the room. The principles are universal. Camouflage. Stillness. Scent masking. Route variation. Threat hierarchy recognition. He clicked to the next slide, a terrifying render of a Cathali apex stalker, all teeth and thermal sensing pits. Who can tell me the first rule of predator evasion? A Dorothy student near the front raised all 4 of his secondary arms. Do not become visible to the apex. Correct. The apex predator sees you, you are already in the terminal phase of the encounter. All evasion strategy is built around preventing detection. Veyron moved through the slides smoothly. Blood pressure regulation to suppress scent trails. Vibration dampening in movement. The statistical advantage of never traveling the same path twice. The class absorbed it dutifully, some taking notes, some recording directly into neural logs. Then the hand went up in the back row. Mara Ellison had a habit of sitting in the back, not from shyness, Veyron had come to understand, but from a deeply ingrained preference for having her back to a wall and a clear view of all exits. She was compact, dark-haired, with the kind of resting stillness that Veyron had initially found reassuring until he realized it wasn't calm. It was assessment. Constant, practiced, automatic assessment of every room she entered. Earth classification, Homo sapiens. Death world of origin, Class 4.7, atmospheric oxygen, 21%, surface gravity, 9.8 meters per square second. Origin biome, varied. Threat adaptation profile, extreme generalist. He had looked up her intake file after the first week of class, when she had corrected his thermal camouflage module with a 13-point addendum she'd written for fun. Yes, Cadet Ellison? Professor. She tilted her head slightly, another thing she did, that slight predatory angle, though he suspected she wasn't aware of it. Which species are we evading? Veyron blinked his secondary eyelids. I'm sorry? The predator. You've covered evasion mechanics generally, but the strategy changes depending on what's hunting you. She gestured at the Cathali stalker still rotating on the hollow. That thing hunts by thermal signature and vibration. Great. So you go cold, go still. But a Rethian pack hunter uses auditory triangulation and chemical memory. Going still actually helps it locate you because it can map your last known position without interference. And a Vashkeel ambush crawler ignores all of that because it hunts by electrical field disruption, which means every living thing with a nervous system is already lit up like a beacon regardless of what you do. The room had gone quiet. My point, Mara continued, is that predator evasion isn't one skill. It's a matrix of conditional responses. You have to know what's hunting you before you pick your behavior, or you might be performing perfect camouflage against the wrong sense entirely. Veyron set his data slate down slowly. Around the room, students were exchanging glances. Adora T was quietly pulling up secondary research. A Neth student, from a peaceful aquatic civilization that had never once in its history faced a land predator, looked faintly ill. That is, Veyron said carefully, a valid framework. However, the unit is designed to establish baseline behaviors that baseline behaviors get you killed if you apply them wrong. There was no aggression in her voice. That was perhaps the most unsettling part. She wasn't challenging him. She was troubleshooting. On Earth, hikers are taught to make noise in bear country to avoid surprise encounters. But if you're in big cat territory, making noise is what gets you ambushed because cats hunt the sound. Two predators, two completely opposite correct behaviors. Applying the bear strategy in leopard territory has a very bad outcome. She paused. I have statistics if you want them. I believe you, he said, and meant it. The problem, Mara said, leaning forward now, and Veyron noticed that several of the students near her had subtly leaned back, is that most species in this classroom evolved alongside specific predators in specific environments. So your threat recognition is excellent for your home predators and potentially catastrophic for anything else. She glanced at the Neth student. No offense. Different oceans. The Neth student made a sound that translated roughly as I am reconsidering my career choices. Veyron picked up his slate again. He was recalibrating, which he did not enjoy but had learned to do quickly around human students. You're suggesting the unit needs to be restructured around predator taxonomy rather than general evasion principles. I'm suggesting that after you teach the general principles, which are genuinely useful as a foundation, you need a cross-reference module. She pulled something up on her own tablet and sent it to the room display without asking, which was either rude or efficient depending on your culture of origin. A complex grid appeared, predator sensory types along one axis, corresponding optimal evasion behaviors along the other, with branching conditional paths for multisensory hunters. I made this after the Unit 6 reading. It felt like it was missing. Silence. You made this, Veyron said, recreationally. I had a long transit. A Karathi student near the middle, a species that communicated partly through color change, had shifted to a deep, involuntary yellow. Veyron recognized the shade. It was the color his people called I have just understood something that changes things. Cadet Ellison, Veyron said slowly, how many predator species did you personally encounter before the age of 18? She considered this with the expression of someone doing arithmetic. Depends on how you define encountered. Like, aware of their presence or in direct contact? Either. Direct contact, bears twice, a mountain lion once, a coyote pack, various venomous snake species, 2 shark encounters, and a moose, which was honestly the scariest. She said this with the flat tone of a grocery list. Aware of presence but maintained distance significantly more. My family camped a lot. The Neth student made the career reconsidering sound again, louder. And you survived all of these, Veyron said, through evasion? Mara Ellison looked at him with those strange flat primate eyes, and for just a moment, something moved behind them that was very old and very practiced and entirely comfortable with the question. Mostly, she said. The moose I had to throw a stick at. It worked. A pause. Moose are weird. Veyron made a note in his slate. Several notes. Then he looked up at his class, at the Dorothy taking rapid secondary notes, the Karathi still yellow, the Neth student quietly having an existential moment, and made a decision. We are, he announced, extending Unit 7 by 2 sessions. Cadet Ellison, I would like you to co-present the Predator Taxonomy Cross-Reference Module. She blinked. Oh. Sure. You will need to formalize your grid and include sourced examples across a minimum of 8 biospheres. I've already got 12. I can trim. Of course she did. Veyron breathed slowly through his secondary respiratory slit, which his people did when processing information that was technically not surprising but still somehow arresting. He had been teaching xenobiology for 11 years. He had taught Velhari cadets, Dorothy cadets, even 2 Keth cadets who had been, objectively, terrifying to grade. He had never once had a student who had needed to trim their recreational threat analysis matrices down to fit the assignment. "Class," he said, "is dismissed 15 minutes early. I recommend reviewing Cadet Ellison's grid before next session." He caught her eye as students began to shuffle out. "And Cadet Ellison, after class, a word." She paused at the aisle. "Did I overstep?" "I can." "No." He searched for the right phrase across 4 languages and landed on the Velhari one, which had the most precision. "Veth Kali." Seeing her expression, he translated, "It means, approximately, the one who sees the whole forest." He tilted his head. "It is not a common trait on any world." Mara Ellison looked at him for a moment, and then, quietly, genuinely, she smiled. "Thanks, Professor," she said. "I just think it's important to know what's hunting you." She shouldered her bag and walked out, back straight, eyes already reading the corridor ahead. Professor Kale Veyron stood alone in the emptied lecture hall and looked at the Predator taxonomy grid still glowing on the display. He updated his lesson plan for the rest of the semester. He also, quietly, updated his personal emergency protocols. Just in case.